morning. My name is Molly Russell. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of West Virginia. I specialize in domestic violence law. I'm actually in Morgantown, which I think you guys are on the border of West Virginia, so that's cool. This is my first time judging nationals. Michael?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Michael Anderson, and I am a retired professor, retired college administrator. I work with Native Americans up here in northern Minnesota. This is my 16th national finals.
Good morning. I'm Ed Philpott. I'm a trial lawyer. My office is in central New Hampshire. My practice is statewide, and I am in my third year of judging the nationals.
All right, and let's have you go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Olivia Stan. I'm a junior at Boonsboro High School. After graduation, I plan on attending a four-year university and majoring in marine biology.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Gann and I'm a senior at Boonsboro High School. After high school, I plan to attend Hood College in Maryland to major in psychology and double minor in criminology and sociology.
Hi, my name is James Haney. I'm a senior at Boonsboro, and after high school, I plan on joining the Marine Corps, and this is our teacher, Ms. Fassick.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Unit 4. How have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institutions and practices? Question 2. Members of Congress are not only legislatures, but they are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of public officers. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigatory power? Bullet point 1. Explain the differences, if any, between Congress's power to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is more significant? Bullet point 2. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers?
The authority of Congress to investigate is an implied constitutional power. James Madison anticipated the significance of congressional inquiry in Federalist 51 when he said, "In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, you must first enable the government to control the governed."
Today, congressional oversight enables House and Senate members to serve as the eyes and ears of the American public.
Congressional investigations date back to 1792, and since then, Congress has conducted hundreds of investigations.
Congressional investigations have not been confined to oversight of the executive or judicial branches, though that has often been the focus of past inquiries.
Congress may investigate anything related to the development of public policy, and since its earliest investigations, Congress has used its power of inquiry in order to inform the public and write more effective legislation.
Over the past 2 centuries, the Senate has probed issues such as interstate commerce, Ku Klux Klan activities, Wall Street banking practices, organized crime, and the Senate's best-known investigatory committee, the Watergate Committee.
The Senate passed a resolution to conduct its first legislative inquiry on December 14, 1859, creating the Select Committee of the seizure of the Armory at Harper's Ferry.
Ever since, the Senate has increasingly recognized the importance of investigation and has expanded its power to conduct inquiries, including a subpoena for power in all standing committees granted by the Legislative Reorganization Act of 1946.
2 processes have threatened Congress's investigatory power.
The executive branch's refusal to cooperate with inquiries and perception that committees overstep their constitutional authority. In 1881, the Supreme Court decided in Kilbourne v. Thompson that a House investigation into the bankruptcy of J. Cook & Company exceeded its authority because no clear legislation resulted from the inquiry. Overall, Congress is effective in their investigatory powers.
The implied powers of congressional investigation and oversight branch from Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, which states all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States.
As such, the implied powers are further developed in scattered pieces of legislation and implied in their applications.
Checks and balances, which is utilized within the U.S., is cemented with these 2 implied powers of Congress.
The investigatory power allows Congress to investigate anything related to public policy.
This broader power allows for Congress to uncover potential abuses of power and corruption in the government, which has historically been seen in investigations such as the Teapot Dome scandal and the Watergate scandal.
The power allows for a better check over the executive branch by granting Congress the power to more thoroughly enforce the executive branch's adherence to the law.
The function of oversight is the power of Congress that is most commonly credited with the checking of the executive branch and can be argued to be the most important power of the 2.
However, it is the joint capabilities of these 2 complementary powers that allows for Congress to more effectively affect policy.
The investigatory power has the capability to appeal to the media and general public and improve legislation.
In total, the oversight power gives Congress a legal excuse to watch and check the executive branch.
The significance of these two powers comes from the coexistence of both, allowing Congress to better balance and improve the present and future legislation of the U.S.
It is evident that without the oversight power, Congress cannot effectively carry out their duties successfully.
Ultimately, this power allows for Congress to determine whether the executive is performing their duties in a legal manner.
Congress is not directly granted this power in the Constitution. However, it is loosely implied in terms of other enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8, such as the necessary and proper clause.
Additionally, sunset laws give Congress the power to check on the aspects of enforcement and implementation.
Dating back to 1792, Congress used the Rules Committee within the House to oversee the objective of investigation.
In modern times, despite being effective, there are still areas where Congress can improve their oversight powers, such as determining when the power needs to be specifically utilized.
Thank you for listening to our testimony. We are now ready for your questions.
Do you believe Congress has the power to subpoena a president?
I believe that with the implementation of the subpoena, and the president, the issue with his office is that there is, of course, executive privilege, but then there's also the fact that they're supposed to be an upstanding member of our community. So it's my belief that, yes, Congress should be able to subpoena a president. Now, sometimes when there is a pressing issue and it's just party politics playing in, sometimes I do believe that that executive privilege should allow the president during times of a crisis to say, this isn't our priority currently.
Whenever there seems to be a threat or there's a direct threat to the American people, Congress should be able to subpoena information, especially if the executive is withholding information from an investigation or just from oversight in general.
In fact, you brought up lots of great historical examples so far, but I would like to hear about some contemporary examples of the utilization of subpoena power and investigation. Are there modern ones we should know about?
I know investigation, recently the Trump and Clinton administrations, those are the two that I know a lot of investigations from, especially with Bill Clinton's utilization of the pardon power. And there is some controversy over some of his pardons and whether or not there was a bribery scandal. And then with Trump, there were investigations preceding both impeachments. And so that definitely had an impact on how the US and the people interpreted the powers of Congress.
With the January 6th Capitol attacks, there is an investigation that is supposed to be ongoing, especially with members of Congress that were either directly involved or indirectly involved with the event on January 6th of 2021. However, due to partisan politics and party polarization, that investigation has not gotten as far as wanted by the American people.
To what extent does partisanship influence these congressional investigations?
Unfortunately, a lot. I know in his farewell address, Washington addressed the issue of potentially the partisanship splitting the nation. And we've seen that with the gridlock, but there's also an issue of impeachments not being taken necessarily seriously, especially by the Senate. We could see in Trump's second impeachment that there was controversy over Republicans voting for the president to be impeached. And so that's an issue, because why is it shocking that these members of Congress are actually doing their jobs and actually attempting to view this from something other than party lines? So, and then it went on in the Senate. There is an issue where they didn't even have the session, and that allowed for the process of the trial to slip through their fingers.
I believe that partisanship in these inquiries are devastating, especially in the public eye, because the public views it as it takes away from the integrity of the trial, and the people just see it as the left versus the right going at each other to try to get their agendas across.
Partisanship causes this great divide, not only within the people, but I think that's something that's less notable in society, especially by the American people, is the fact that partisanship can divide the processes and the framework of the government. Not only does it divide the views of the people, the wide range of opinion in a representative republic, but it also divides the processes, your oversight powers, your pardon powers, your investigatory power, and it ultimately affects it to where it's not really it's the American people at that point being affected, and Congress is less affected by this.
What's the mechanism for that? How would you say it divides the processes?
With partisanship consistently going on, especially with the different opinions and the inability to sometimes come to a unanimous decision, especially in an investigation, then it further divides the process. It makes the process less effective. In simpler terms, it makes it so it affects the American people as well. So it almost makes the process less effective. And with even with an implied power, it can even make it even more less effective because there's no explicit statements, there's no emphasis on it, it's just implied.
I think
the media plays a big difference in here too, because we've had an evolution in how information is given out. We have direct links to our Congress people, not only through email and mail, but also these people are tweeting and sending out notifications on social media. So we have an opportunity for the American people to be more involved in their government. The issue with that, though, is that there is a lot of misinterpretation of information and statistics. And because of it, it creates a subculture in the US where we aren't necessarily as educated as we believe we are.
I think an area where partisanship shows up in these inquiries is at the Senate level, and especially with our justices who are supposed to be unbiased. We have a lot of people now saying that they're Trump's justices and they helped protect him, and I think that's a negative impact of the partisanship.
Well, let's, in your earlier part of your presentation, you talked about public policy and you also talked about laws. So if the legislature makes the laws, why should they be reviewing them? Why isn't that a judicial process?
I believe that it's not necessarily reviewing them. If the laws are brought up to the Supreme Court, then it would be under their jurisdiction. But I believe that it is the legislative branch's check on whether or not their policies are actually being implemented. They aren't going to go through the process of making a bill into a law just to have it be forgotten, although that does happen sometimes. But it's the intention. I know the U.S. Patriot Act was one of those sunset laws that was very crucial to the US democracy, especially after 9/11, but it was them double checking that their laws that they created are not going to be abused by another branch. And I think it's taking responsibility for the things they created.
Watkins v. United States also gives the Supreme Court precedent, and it encompasses both applied and proposed laws by Congress to further their oversight powers as well.
So what limits, if any, do you think should be placed upon the investigatory powers of Congress?
I know we discussed, I believe it was Kilburn v. Thompson, but there is supposed to be legislation that comes from the investigations. If not, there should be at least an impeachment or something of the sort. There needs to be some sort of legal repercussion or effect that an investigation has. And when that's not clear, that's when the Congress is in violation of their constitutional implied rights, but it's vague on purpose in order to allow them the freedom to move.
So are you saying that Congress is required to take some sort of action, even if they find nothing wrong as a result of their investigation?
I think the intention of the implied powers is for them to have the opportunity to create legislation. I guess if there is nothing wrong, then it shows them where they need to go with their policy in the future and that they are on the right track.
Ooh. Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Talk about timing.
Yeah, on the right track. Totally on the right track. All right, great job, everyone. You did it. First one of the day. All right, we're going to go through with some comments for you now. First of all, and this isn't even the in your presentation, I really enjoyed hearing what you all are going to be doing with your future. You all seem like an amazing group of students, and it's great to know that you're going to go out in the world and do incredible things. So you guys knew your history very well. Case law, articles. I was just very impressed. Names of different acts. I was very impressed with the breadth of knowledge that you had with your history. And this is coming from my attorney perspective, the fact that you could cite it and then explain how it's analogous. Very good strength of yours. Overall, great job.
Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, so I enjoyed the conversation. These hearings are best when a conversation occurs, when our questions come from your responses. And I think you did that quite well. Some real good historical references, but also what I liked in particular was your analysis of this question in the context of what's going on now, the partisanship piece of it. Social media is, further driving a wedge there, and I think that was a good reference that you guys made. So overall, thank you. Enjoyed the conversation.
I also, here's the things I marked that were interesting for me. Hope they're interesting for you. I too like the idea that modern social media, Ed and I, not Molly, we're pretty old. So the fact that the president of the United States for the last 4 years was tweeting every 15 minutes changed the way that we saw things coming out of Washington, D.C. And I think it's true of your generation more than any that the way in which social media and that kind of technological communication will make a big difference. And you were wise to point that out. Partisanship divides processes. That's an excellent approach for, let's be honest, shall we? You want to get up on Sunday morning and talk about oversight? Well, you did a good job of bringing the things in that you needed to make this somehow meaningful. And that was another good point. I also like, and I'm going to quote you on this. I won't quote you by name, but I will quote you. I have quotation marks around it. Why should we be shocked that Republicans in this case were doing their job? I don't know. You tell me. But
we are.
Yeah, but I mean, what you were saying was these people were voting their conscience, and why should they be criticized for voting the way they thought best they should represent their people? And you also had a good answer for why isn't this judiciary power? Because I think there's a really fine line in your presentation or anyone's about where you should say, we're going to continue to look at this as members of Congress or the Senate. And no, we should turn this over to law. We made the law, so it should be checked by the judicial branch. So that was a good job. Overall, you were thoughtful with a difficult topic, I thought. Good work.
I also enjoyed the Harper's Ferry, John Brown one. Obviously, I knew who that was. I knew who you're talking about. And that's regional history for you also. I appreciated that.
We didn't even know you were a judge, but I knew you would like that.
Well, let's congratulate the students again on a job well done this morning. Congratulations.
Great job, guys.